Hello everyone, and welcome back to Network 27. I'm Alderman Walter Burnett, Alderman of the 27th Ward. I want to first of all thank everyone who helped me to put the show together. I want to thank everyone for coming out to vote in the last election. You made the 27th Ward look great, so thank you all very much for being good voters, and thank you for voting for the people we were supporting. We really appreciate that. Also, I'd like to thank all of the folks who came to our job fair that we just had with Jesse White at the Jesse White Center. It was very successful. We had many vendors. A lot of people got jobs on the spot. If you miss it, too bad for you, but maybe next time we'll have more coming up. And I'd like to thank all of the people who helped us to put that together, especially I would like to thank Jesse White for partnering with me. As you all know, we have our annual stepping set. We have our monthly stepping set going on. Our first stepping set is April the 20th. It's going to be at the Salvation Army, 825 North Christiana. That's from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. If you want to come and show me what you can do, you want to step with the Alderman, you know, I still can get down. I challenge anybody out there anytime. So you can come and step with us. I like to act silly every once in a while. Also, you need to sign up for the City Summer Job Program that's going on. That's going to end May the 21st. To sign up for the City Job Program, you need to have your kids and your grandkids to sign up. Is onesummerchicago.com. You can go, they can do it at their schools, they can do it at their libraries. You can even come to my office. We'll try to help you to go on a computer to sign up. They have a limited amount of jobs, so everyone needs to come and sign up. We're grateful for all of the corporations who support the city on hiring young people in the summertime, and thankful for the money that we have to do that. So please sign your kids and your grandkids up. So ladies and gentlemen, as you know, Network 27, we try to bring information to you to inform you and also to introduce you to folks that help us in the city of Chicago. So today, a lot of folks don't know that there are some strong sisters in the city of Chicago who's running things in the city. They're making the city flow, they're keeping everything going, and the mayor is very fortunate to have a lot of female support. A lot of folks don't know that most of his top cabinet is more than 50% females, and he has several African American females that's doing some great things in the city of Chicago, and they're making us very, very proud. Today we have with us the Chief Financial Officer.
Chief Financial Officer.
For the city of Chicago,
yes.
Which is probably one of the most important jobs that you can have in the city of Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Miss Carole Brown.
Thank you, Alderman. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on to the show, Ms. Brown. Why don't you, Carole, why don't you tell people who Carole Brown is?
Okay, well, I am a former investment banker. I spent most of my career as an investment banker.
So what do investment bankers do? Because a lot of folks don't know what an investment banker is.
So what we do is we help people access capital. And so investment bankers help people borrow money to fund projects, to fund businesses, and then we go and find the people who will invest in those businesses. And so that's what I did.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes. So a lot of people don't know this. I'm not from Chicago originally. I moved to Chicago a long time ago to go to business school. Mm-hmm. I went to Northwestern, and I thought I would go back east. I grew up out east, and I thought as soon as I finished business school, I'd be on the first thing smoking back to New York. But I ended up...
So you grew up in New York?
I grew up in Baltimore. I went to college in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and then I would do internships in New York. And I just loved New York and thought I would end up living there. But by the time I graduated from business school, I had fallen in love with the city. And so I actually spent my entire professional career in Chicago.
So what are the schools that you went to?
So I went to college at Harvard, and I went to Harvard.
Oh, wow.
And
you must be smart.
Some people think I'm smart. And I got my MBA from Northwestern, from Kellogg. And so then I came to stay in Chicago, and I worked at a number of investment banks, but spent most of my investment banking career at Lehman Brothers. I was at Lehman when Lehman went bankrupt, and Lehman became Barclays, which is where I was when in 2015 the mayor asked me to come and take the job as CFO of the city.
Fantastic. So you've done some other things though.
Yes,
before 2015.
Yeah, while I was at Lehman, a lot of people might recognize me because I spent 9 years as chairman of the Chicago Transit Authority, but that was my part-time job. My full-time job was investment banking, and I was chairman of the CTA for 9 years.
So I see a sign here in your office, and it says CTA Brown Line. So the Brown Line is named after you, is it?
No, no, they gave that to me when I left, but I was at CTA. I was chair of CTA when we rebuilt the Brown Line.
Is that right?
Yeah. So, and that's actually how I met Mayor Emanuel. He was the congressman at the time, and he used to call and yell at me about the Brown Line construction. So,
fantastic. So you work for CTA.
So I worked for CTA and was always involved civically while I was doing investment banking. I was an investment banker that actually, the city was one of my clients, the state was one of my clients, and so I was always interested in how the city was doing. And when, in 2015, when the city got into a little bit of trouble, we were downgraded to non-investment grade, and that really created a crisis at the city. The mayor thought it was not a good time to be without a CFO. It was at the beginning of his second term, and he asked me to come on board. A lot of people don't realize how much work Mayor Emanuel and his administration has done to kind of improve the finances of the city. Since he's been in office, we've reduced our deficit. We've figured out a funding plan for our pensions, and as you know, Alderman, because you've been very supportive of that, when the mayor took office, the pensions were all in danger of going insolvent. And we have a lot of dedicated employees who spent their lives working for the city and expected their pensions to be there. So it's very important to the mayor that we come up with a plan that didn't overburden the city, that allowed people to continue to invest in the city, but dealt with the plan that made sure that our employees who had worked so hard for the city had their pensions when they retired.
So let's back up. So you went to Harvard.
I went to Harvard.
Right?
Yeah.
So I heard you was like making money in Harvard when you was in school. What were you doing when you were at Harvard?
So, Alderman, I was a DJ. He knows I was a DJ. I was a DJ, so I had my own radio show. And in addition to having my own radio show, we actually spun parties on the weekends to make money. So,
is that right?
Yeah. So, and if anybody knows anything about Boston, Boston has the highest concentration of colleges and universities of any city in the country. And so we would go to different colleges and we would be the DJs for the parties.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
So what was your DJ name?
My DJ name was Carole L. Lynette is my middle name. And what was interesting was for the radio show, Harvard had a full-blown radio station, but we were the only, our show was called The Darker Side. And we were the only radio team that knew how to one-man our shows, which means we didn't need a producer. So yes, I had a mixer, I knew how to mix, I knew how to, you know. And if this doesn't work out, I still might be
Good for you.
spinning a few parties.
So you said you were an investment banker.
An investment banker, yes.
Some folks know what investment bankers are. You said what investment bankers do, but do investment bankers make a lot of money?
Define a lot. No. You know, it's one of the careers that I think a lot of people should consider because there is an opportunity to build wealth, to be well paid for what you do. Mm-hmm. It provides a lot of opportunity. I've traveled all over the world. I've met a lot of really amazing people as a result of my career. My parents were both public school teachers. And so the amount of exposure that I've gotten because of where I went to school and because of my career has been great. So it's a great career, I think, for people to look at.
So would you say some of the richest people in the world are investment bankers?
I would say that some of the richest people in the world are people who invest money. Some of those are investment bankers, and others are just people who are really smart entrepreneurs who built companies and know how to invest money. But I think financial literacy is really important. Understanding how you can make the right decisions, understanding how you can not fall into some of the traps that I think a lot of young people fall into with too much debt, not saving, not seeing how they can get their money to grow and work for them. I think that as an investment banker, you learn those things because you're trying to get your clients to do those things, and you can apply those things to yourself.
Are there a lot of African American investment bankers?
They're not.
Are there a lot of female African American investment bankers?
There are even fewer female African American investment bankers than there are male. So.
Fantastic. So I commend you
Thank you.
for being one of the few.
Thank you.
Would it be right to say that you're losing money by working for the city?
Yeah, I consider this my public service. I did not take the job for the money, but I do consider it a tremendous honor that the mayor asked me, that he trusted that I could help the city, and I've learned a lot, and I have a lot of respect for the people who work for the city. I mean, I don't think anybody works for the city for the money. I think the dedication and the amount of hard work that the professionals exhibit, it's really commendable.
So now you're on the other side, right? So you were on the investment banker side,
Yeah.
which come and try and do business with the city,
Yes.
and try to leverage those dollars and invest other people's money and help the city to get money in order to support projects. So now you're the person who have to tell all investment bankers, yeah, we'll use you. Yeah, you qualify. No, you don't qualify, whatever the case may be. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we hire investment bankers to help us borrow money. We borrow money from banks. So I spend a lot of time negotiating those things, helping to structure the best way for the city to borrow money. And so we spend a lot of time meeting with banks, talking about potential deals, and I try to select the firm that is bringing the best idea to the city and that can help the city access the market in the best and least costly way. It's a lot. We have a lot of firms that call on us a lot, and we've been doing a lot of bond work in the last few years, and so there's a lot of opportunity for investment bankers here with the city, at the City of Chicago, and so we get a lot of interest, a lot of interest.
So in your position, we borrow a lot of money.
Yes.
So your job is to try to get us money borrowed at the least,
At the least
lowest
cost.
interest rate.
At the lowest cost. So I spend a lot of time, one of the things that I've done is I spend a lot of time with the investors as well. So the investment banks help us sell our bonds to investors. People who buy our bonds are firms like Nuveen or BlackRock or PIMCO, Vanguard. Those are the end investors. Those are the people that are talking to our investment banks to buy our bonds. And so I've spent a lot of time talking to them and developing relationships with them so that they can understand what the city's doing, why the city is a good credit risk, and why it pays to invest in the city.
So I know we have had to refinance some things,
Yes.
right? So tell us, why do we have to refinance things?
So what we've tried to do is make sure that we have the lowest cost of our debt for taxpayers. So that means we're using less tax dollars to pay back our debt. And so if we identified chances to lower our costs, it's just like refinancing your mortgage. If you entered into a mortgage, a couple years later, rates go down, you want to refinance it to pay less. So we do that, and we do a lot of that because at all times, we're trying to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And so if I can lower the cost of our debt, that means that I'm spending less of taxpayers' money to pay for the debt.
So in 2015, you came on.
Yep.
So now going to the 2015.
So in 2015, I came on. We had been downgraded. We had a huge deficit. We had no plan to fund our pension funds. We have 4 pension funds. Our pension funds were all...
Name those 4 pension funds.
So we have police, we have fire, we have municipal, and we have laborers. All 4 of those funds were in danger of going insolvent, which means we wouldn't have any money to pay benefits. And the mayor asked me to come on to help work with the finance team and senior members and council to come up with a plan to deal with some of our financial problems. And really in 2.5 short years, we now have all 4 of our pension funds have a funding plan. All 4 of them are on the way to solvency. We've cut the deficit by 80%. We have gotten rid of all of the kind of financial engineering that got us into trouble. We have no swaps. We have no variable rate.
I know folks don't understand. What are swaps?
So swaps are what's known as a derivative product, and it helped. You're like, they don't know. Derivative product.
Yes.
The mayor calls me one of his propeller heads, so I apologize. So swaps are a financial instrument that allowed the city to hedge or to kind of balance its rate risk or its exposure to interest rates. But I think people remember in 2008 when the market crashed, if you had a lot of those on your balance sheet like the city did at that time, the benefit of that kind of flipped with the market going down. And so what was a good thing up to 2008 became a really costly thing for the city. And we were still carrying that cost in 2015. And so I and my team worked with council and worked with the mayor's office to get rid of all those swaps, to get rid of any of our kind of risk that we had in our balance sheet. And so we don't have any of that anymore.
Fantastic. So there was something real big that just happened.
Yes.
Just recently.
Yes.
It's the airport.
It's huge.
An $8.5 billion deal.
$8.5 billion.
Can you tell us about that? And
Sure,
how does that affect the city?
It's really exciting. So we're going to basically rebuild O'Hare Airport terminals. So we're going to modernize the terminals. We think that it'll improve the number of people that travel in and out of O'Hare. It's $8.5 billion that is going to be invested in those terminals. It won't include any taxpayer dollars. So the airlines who fly in and out of O'Hare will pay for it. It will generate 60,000 jobs. We think it will add $50 billion to our economy. And we think that it will help to make O'Hare one of the top airports in the world for the next generation. So
Fantastic.
We're really excited about it.
So, Carole, it has to be tremendous to be able to be here at this time.
Yes.
And just to know that you're going to leave a legacy of turning things around.
Well, I mean, I hope that people appreciate how
They
much,
may see it now,
Yeah.
but they probably see it later.
I hope that people appreciate how much the current administration has done to help make sure that Chicago remains one of the top cities in the world, and how much Mayor Emanuel and his team have done to improve the finances, to put the finances on a solid footing, to bring businesses to Chicago, to improve jobs, to invest in the neighborhoods. I mean, a lot of people don't realize how much investment has gone not only in Chicago downtown, but in the neighborhoods, and with our Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, how we're helping to fund the growth of small businesses all over the city, and we want to do more of that. So it is, I'm very proud to have been part of it. I'm very proud that I a little bit have contributed to the long-term health of the city.
So do you have any other big thing coming up with the city that you could talk about?
I do have a couple other big things coming, but nothing I can talk about right now.
So that sounds great.
Thank you.
That sounds great. So tell me this, Carole. I know that you do this with the city, right? You deal with all the pension funds. So you spoke about the police and the fire, so you kind of deal with their budgets a little bit, right? But what about the Park District and the Board of Education? Do you consult with them on their stuff?
Yeah, Alderman, I have a CFO meeting every month with all of the CFOs
And
of the
city
sister
colleges.
agencies.
Who are all
Yes,
of them?
so
CTA?
CTA, city colleges, CHA, Park District, and CPS, PBC, and PBC. So we meet. The mayor's CEO of the city, and he wants to make sure that all the city and its sister agencies are managed in the best, and that we're aware of their issues, and that to the extent that we can help them with problems, that we do. And so I stay in tune with what's going on with all the sister agencies, with their finances. I have counterparts that do the same on the operations side, so that we hopefully don't have a whole lot of surprises.
Fantastic. So you're not just with the city, you deal with all our sister agencies and give them advice on their finances.
Absolutely.
And leverage all of your experience and
Absolutely.
Expertise in order to make sure they stay solvent.
I mean, and you know this because you're the alderman, but you know this, a lot of times the average resident doesn't distinguish between the park district and the city, or CTA and the city. It's all the city to them. And if they have a problem, I know this from my time at CTA, they call the alderman. If they have a problem with CTA, they call the alderman. If they have a problem with CPS, they call their alderman. And so it's the same thing for the mayor. And so as part of his cabinet, it's our responsibility to make sure that we're on top of problems not only at the city, but all over the sister agencies.
Fantastic. Well, Carole Lynette?
Carole L.
Carole Lynette.
That's how I always know I was in trouble. My father went,
DJ Carole Lynette.
Yep.
Spinning it. So back then you were spinning records and scratching?
Yeah. I don't know. I was watching a DJ the other day that was doing it with his iPad, and he had a mixer, and he has, and I was like, I don't know how to do that. I have 2 turntables and a mixer and a headphone.
So do you still have turntables?
They're in storage, but I still have them.
Can you still mix it up?
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna tell the mayor he need to let you come and play at our Christmas party, man. See if you can get all us off the floor. You know, some of those I'll be trying to get them to dance at the Christmas party, man.
Well, I tell people, everybody thinks, house music, that Chicago has the whole monopoly on house music, but we know how to spin on the East Coast too.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for serving the city of Chicago.
Well, thank you for serving the city of Chicago.
I appreciate, I'm not giving up a lot of money. I appreciate you taking time off from making a lot of money to be here. And thank God you're able to do that. Yes. And thank you for also being a role model for many other young ladies and African American males and minorities in the city to show that we can run finances too. So we really appreciate everything. You're an inspiration. You don't know it. I think the more people see you, more people know. I think it may inspire a lot of folks to go in this field. So
thank you, Alderman. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you very much.
Nice.
So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And look forward for those other great things you have coming up.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back. We're going to have our next guest on in a minute. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So now we have another guest. So we're talking to some strong sisters who deal with numbers. I call them number crunchers, right? So we have with us Samantha Fields. Samantha is the budget director for the city of Chicago. And we call her Sam. So Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you being here. So Sam, why don't you tell the audience who is Sam Fields or Samantha Fields? Mm-hmm. So tell me, first of all, Sam Fields, Samantha, did your dad want a boy at first and he called you Sam, or?
No, Sam just runs off the tongue. I was a little bit of a tomboy, so I think everybody
they just called
me Sam. And
you don't look like a tomboy.
No, nobody will ever believe it. Nobody believes that I'm athletic, because I was when I was younger.
So were you jacking boys up if you had
Only
to?
if I had to, Only if I had to. But no, I used to tell people I can tell what mood my mother is in by what she calls me. Sam, Samantha, or Sammy. You just never know what you'll get. So I'll go by anything.
Okay, good deal. So, so Sam, why don't you tell us who Sam is?
So I'm going to sound like our former First Lady Michelle Obama. I'm a girl from the South Side.
Okay.
I grew up in Southwest Chicago in the 19th Ward. Went to.
So some folks don't know what the 19th Ward is.
So I am close to Evergreen Plaza.
Okay.
If people are familiar with that, I went to elementary school at Sutherland, and then I went to Morgan Park High School. So I'm a Mustang.
Okay.
And I went to Spelman College and studied econ. After that,
You study economics?
Yes.
Wow.
So we're a liberal arts school, historically black college and university, right across the street from Morehouse College. In fact, the mayor just went there a couple of weeks ago to do recruitment with some startup companies. And so I attended, and we went to Spelman and Morehouse to do some recruitment and talk to the faculty. And
I know that was like great for you. Huh?
that was, when you go back to your alma mater, it's like going home to a reunion. You have to get your hair done. You have to have your good outfit on, and it was really just fulfilling to go back, and you're just re-energized. And my brother went to Morehouse, so I felt like I was, back at home. And he also visited Georgia Tech, so we had a really good conversation with the students there. And so
he's recruiting students to come and work here?
He is. The mayor has been on a series of recruitment trips, and he's been to the East Coast and the West Coast. He hit Spelman and Morehouse, which are historically black colleges and universities, as well as Georgia Tech. When he goes...
Those are historical black colleges.
And when he attends, he goes with a group of startup companies or tech companies from the city. And so the thought is, not only is he talking to students who live in Chicago, but also those that are Chicago bound. And the purpose is just to encourage people to come here. We have a very diverse group of employers, and we have a lot of people that maybe people aren't familiar with, students are familiar with, that are ready and willing to hire.
That's something. So, it's a funny thing. The media don't say all of that. They just say what they want to talk about, but they don't say he's going to recruit African American students from historical black colleges to come and get a job with companies that he have with him.
Right.
That's amazing. They don't say that. But anyway, that's great. So you went to Spelman.
So I attended Spelman, and then when I graduated, I was in the finding myself stage. So I came home and I actually volunteered on the campaign of then State Senator Barack Obama, who was running for U.S. Senate at the time. So I learned a lot there. When I went to Spelman, I thought I was going to be a doctor. And I had done a lot of programs prior to going to undergrad that were medicine related. There was one problem. I had an issue with blood and needles. It just makes me queasy. I can't even watch those reality shows. So I thought I would grow out of it, and I didn't. So I switched my major, went to econ. I came back, worked on the campaign, decided I wanted to go to law school because of the flexibility of a JD. I thought that with a JD I could do anything. I can go into the boardroom. I could do anything but hold a scalpel. So I went to the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, received my JD, and came back home, sat for the bar. So I'm barred here and in DC, and then I decided to go into government, which I think is where you and I met. So my first job out of law school was with an aldermanic office. So I 100% can appreciate your day-to-day and activities and the expectations that your community has for you, and certainly a lot of the things that you have to do. It's not a 9-to-5 job, and I think people don't fully appreciate that you guys are working 24/7, and so my hat goes off to you and your colleagues for that. So I worked there briefly, and then I went into the mayor's office and did intergovernmental affairs.
So what alderman did you work for?
Alderman Rugai in the 19th Ward.
Ginger Rugai. Okay. How long did you work there?
A little bit over a year, not that long. I finished, after I took the bar, I went to work for her, and then I went into the mayor's office and to the IGA. And so, under the previous mayor.
Okay.
And then I did a lot of issues with gun laws and gun bills, because at the time, we had the city of Chicago had our gun bans in place, and we were constantly challenged in court and in Springfield by the NRA to dismantle our very stringent at the time gun codes. And so that was a lot of what my portfolio was in Springfield.
So you were working for the mayor in Springfield. Okay. So then after that?
After that, I went over to the state. I did legislative affairs for the Department of Transportation, and then I moved into the governor's office under Governor Pat Quinn. When we transitioned out of that role, I came back over to the city.
So what did you do for Governor Pat Quinn?
I was his deputy chief of staff. So I had a portfolio of departments that were family oriented.
You look so young, man.
That's good genes.
Go ahead.
So I worked with the Department of Children and Family Services, Department of Juvenile Justice, Aging, and a lot of other departments, but those were the larger ones, and it was a really meaningful experience. I got involved in operations with government at a deeper level than I had been previously, and I felt like there were some meaningful connections and policies and programs that we were able to put in place, and I had a really supportive boss. Then I transitioned into a role here at the City of Chicago under this mayor, Mayor Emanuel, and I worked as the Deputy Legislative Director for the City Council team. I did that for a few years, and the mayor appointed me as the Commissioner for the Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Department, and then shortly thereafter I was appointed into this position.
Fantastic. So you had like 20 jobs.
I know. I promise I can keep a job. I promise. So.
So you can keep a job.
I can keep a job.
Well, God has blessed you with a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely.
I know, well, you know, I've known you since you were when you were younger, and I see you as one of our kids. So, but anyway, I guess that's saying I'm old, right? But
no,
anyway,
it says you're a good mentor.
Okay,
you
thank
take people
you.
under your wing.
So, I know a lot of the aldermen appreciate working with you when you worked for the mayor's office. So tell us, what was your duties when you was working for the mayor's office?
So we vetted a lot of legislation that went through, both things that were introduced by the aldermen and also things that our departments, initiatives that our departments wanted to move forward with. And so a lot of the things are, you know, you have a lot of things that certainly as chairman run through your committee. It ranges from broad policy issues like paid sick leave and minimum wage to something that everybody can relate to, like a street sign or an appropriation so that they can get their streets paved. So it's a range of things that you as aldermen have to deal with and we as city employees have to deal with, and those are the kind of items that we vetted as they went through council. Some of those things we worked with constituencies, we've worked with external parties or advocacy groups to either improve them or to make sure that we have a long-lasting and meaningful policy that we put in place and something that can be done operationally and that has the appropriate funding. And we've tried to make sure that we've highlighted everyone's interest as we move forward with legislation.
Fantastic. So in your new position, I know at Business Affairs you worked on dealing with a lot of businesses and licensing and all of those things. So in your new position, you're over the budget. So tell us about that. What do your department do? So
we are a team of analysts, forecasters, deputies, and we are looking at accountants, and we manage a $10 billion budget for the city. It's our operational budget.
10 billion.
$10 billion. And it's obviously from various funding sources. The most that people are familiar with is roughly about $3 to $4 billion, which is the corporate fund. And so all of the taxes that people are familiar with, amusement tax, ground transportation tax, and a host of other things, utility tax, the 911 surcharge, those are in our corporate fund. And those things that people, when they see come out of their, when they're looking at their telephone bill or when they're looking at the bag tax and they wonder, where's my dollar going? It's going towards the operations of the city. So all that comes back into the corporate fund and it's distributed amongst our 44 departments. And it pays for staffing, our personnel costs, and it pays for the programming cost. We also get funds, grants from the state, grants from external parties, and also grants from at the federal level. So we do have a number of various revenue sources that make up our budget. And what we do throughout the year is manage that. So our departments are given an allocation. When we go through the budget cycle and the city council approves or contributes and then approves the budget, we're on a fiscal year. We start January through December, and we we work very closely with the departments to make sure that they're operating within their budgets, and if they need any additional resources that we are able to make efforts to get them. that.
So you work with every department in the city.
Yes.
So every department have to work with you to deal with their budget.
Yes.
So you make sure they have the resources. So they have to come to you for money, basically.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But also you make sure they work within their budget,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So when we have our budget constraints with the city, so you are the one who have to tell each of these departments that, hey, you gotta, chop off a little bit.
We obviously prioritize it, but we go through, our budget process is half of year when we're just crafting the budget before we present it to council. So we ask the departments to go through a real meaningful and thorough process to determine what their upcoming needs are, what they have in place. So there shouldn't be anything unexpected when we actually have to implement the budget and account for it the following year. And so if there is some emergency, then we obviously have to see if we have some means for it, or if we can just reassign or reallocate some dollars if it's within the authority that we were given from you, or we have to go back to council and say this is a real issue. It was one that was unexpected. This is how much it would cost, and these are the pros and cons between funding it and not funding it, and seeing if we can get some authority from you to do that.
Unlike in Washington, D.C., we can have any unfunded mandates, huh?
No.
So we have to have a balanced budget.
We have to have a balanced budget.
So your job is to make sure our budget is balanced all the time, and anything can set that off, like insurance costs go up, or more people retire, or whatever the case may be, or prices of things go up, like
Right.
computers or technology or whatever.
Right, that's a great point. We do forecast for those things, so we try to make sure that we look at all of our commodities, and if there's the cost of inflation for construction or some of those commodities, that we build that into our budget each year. And you're right, Alderman, we do take into account every year wages increase, because we have a great portion of our workforce that are under collective bargaining agreements, and they have built-in percentage increases, and so we account for that in our budget. So there are some variables, but we try to make sure that we have all of that accounted for in our budget. And there's some departments that may not spend as much as they anticipated, and so we do have a little bit of a wiggle room there too.
You also try to having all of these analysts up here, and having your folks looking at everyone's budget, so you try to cut out fat.
Yes.
So you have something like that going on. Something like that going on now. Can you tell us
Right.
about that?
So one of the things that what the mayor has always said, and this certainly predates me, I think when he got into office, is that there may be a need to raise revenues, but we're going to look at cutting the fat too, and figuring out how we can trim certain things, and we want to eliminate any duplicative efforts. So over the course of his tenure, there have been eliminations in some departments, because there may have, and so that we can eliminate silos, and there's some efficiencies in our operations. There have been energy savings, there's been a reduction in vacancies, so there have been a host of things that are trimming the fat, so to speak, before we go to the next step of trying to figure out if we need to raise different revenues to make up for that deficit. Right now, we are in the process of renegotiating our collective bargaining agreements, and the council has approved a few, and we're in the process of doing others. Some are larger than others. As you know, we've had the COOP agreement, which has a number of smaller unions within their larger union. People, I think, are familiar generally with AFSCME and FOP and Local 2, and so we're in the process of trying to find savings, working with both the union and the administration, of course, to find savings so that we can have a meaningful contract to put before City Council and before your constituents.
So you all are dealing with the police department on something right now, aren't you?
So I am not.
Okay.
However, our law department and policy members from the mayor's administration has been working on consent decree. I think we don't call it that at this point, but there has been different variations of this. But there has been, since the transition at the federal level with presidencies, we've had some involvement initially with the DOJ, and now transitioning more at the local level to come up with reform efforts for the police department.
But I'm speaking in reference to their budget.
Oh,
So aren't you doing? Is something
Yes,
happening with
absolutely.
their budget right now?
I'm sorry, thank you. Well, one of the things that we're doing is we're working on their overtime.
Okay.
And we have put in place a greater policy for the entire city, but we're working very closely with them on overtime to manage that with their budget. And we're also looking at other efficiencies within their budget. There are a number of external parties that are really engaged with what's happening with the police department right now, and so we are trying to make sure that we keep a close eye on that just in case there are any financial implications.
So Sam, we rely on your department a lot, right? Especially around budget time, because us and the citizens always do not want to raise taxes or fees. Right, and it's your job to try to put us in a posture where we won't have to do that, right? And so far you've been successful, and do I don't want to bring up the future, but I'm hoping that you're successful in the future, because none of us want to do any increased burdens on the citizens of the city. Some things are necessary, and we understand that. So how is it looking? Is it too early to talk about those things?
It is too early to tell, but we're probably going to be in the same pathway from last year. We had a fairly easy budget where we didn't have a across-the-board tax hike. We had an increase in the 911 surcharge, and we did have an increase in our ground transportation tax, but those are user fees. We didn't have to do property tax hikes. I think our CFO had mentioned earlier that you all have done the hard work, you and your colleagues and the administration, of finding revenue streams for some of our major liabilities. And so what we are projecting for this upcoming budget is some more of an easier time, that you've made a lot of the hard decisions, and I think that if we do anticipate some of those increases from increases in, but I think that they're manageable given the work that you all have already done in the past, and we will certainly consider raising taxes or any other revenue streams a last resource.
Okay, fantastic. So that's great. So how long you been on this job now?
I started in July.
Is that right?
July of last year.
So it's not even a year yet.
No, not yet.
But it feels like you've been there for a long time, huh?
Well, I've been around when you all have your budgets.
Right.
Yes, but it has been a very good experience, and I've had such great help. We have a trio of women for our financial team, and it's been very helpful to have them.
I'm starting to think that you all discriminate against guys, man, because there's so many women around running this stuff. I got to talk to the mayor. I told the mayor when he was on my show that I think he does that because he was, from being a ballet dancer and going to all girls school, that he's kind of partial to the sisters.
Well, I have no comment because I'm not going to talk about the boss on TV.
And so he's like, "Yeah, Walter, I went to all girls school." So he takes it with pride. But we're blessed to have some smart women working for the city of Chicago, and I know with all of your experience in having a law degree, I'm sure some big law firm would take you in and make you a partner, if you chose to do that, and probably can make a lot of money too. So I really appreciate you being here and doing your civic duty and working for the city of Chicago. I know you're not here for the money. And we're blessed to have people like you and Carole and other folks in this city who's doing what they do, and not for the money, but for the service. So. And I know that the mayor, you worked with him on several levels. I know he's very demanding. You wanted
also,
to say,
no comment.
No comment. But you've worked with all of the aldermen too, and so are we, because our constituents are very demanding, and so we appreciate all of the things that you had to deal with dealing with all of us, and keeping our budget straight, because you can make or break us elected officials if you don't take care of the budget. So appreciate everything you're doing. Appreciate everything you and Carole did at the last budget. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What happened with the last budget, and how did you all balance that out?
Sure. So in the last budget, there were a few things. As we touched upon earlier, we had a few revenue increases, which was the 911 surcharge. And so that's what we increased it for $5, but those revenues are dedicated towards the 911 center and everything that, the updates that we intend to make over the next 10 years, and so it's a needed fee. We also did the ground transportation tax, so we increased that. That money is going into our general corporate fund pot, but also we had a little innovative part of the ground transportation tax. And so a portion of that we are transmitting over to CTA so that they could use it for infrastructure upgrades. And this was an attempt on the mayor's part to be innovative, since the ride-sharing companies have such a do utilize our infrastructure. The mayor thought it would be unique and innovative to use the revenues from that to help build our infrastructure. So we've supported schools with this last budget. We did a large TIF surplus, and so as you know, when we surplus the TIFs, they go back to the taxing bodies, and they certainly greatly appreciate that money. It goes back to the county, the park district, CPS, and back to our operating funds. So we utilize some of that, and a combination of those things with some other efficiencies and cuts we made allowed us to balance a budget without having to make any other large revenue asks from the taxpayers.
Fantastic. So I just got to say, this last budget, yourself and Carole, you left the whole council speechless. The only thing we can do is commend you all, and I look forward to doing that again at this budget. So I want to thank you very much, Sam, for coming on the show. So you were an athlete. What were you doing? What type of sports? Come on, give me the lowdown.
So I did soccer, I did track, and I did volleyball. Now, I won't tell you if I was good or not in any of those, but actually my dad coached soccer at his company, and he's really competitive. And so whenever my coach was gone with volleyball, I hope I said it's volleyball, he coached volleyball. Whenever my coach was missing, he filled in. And he was just so disappointed in us, because my coach had taught us that you go in the game to build character, and it's not all about
Your dad
winning.
wanted to win.
He's like, it's about winning. Get it together.
Sound like me. Well, that's great. Now, we got to go. Show's almost over. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
But I know you volunteer at a school. What school is that?
Yes, I volunteer at Heffron Elementary School. So I work with the organization Lakeshore Links, and we volunteer there. We have a partnership, so we do a lot of work with
Fantastic.
them.
And you find time to do that.
Yeah, I use my vacation time.
All right, you're a super lady. All right. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, for being on the show. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching Network 27. Alderman Burnett, don't forget the step is set, April 20th. Come on and get your step on. Let me show you what we can do. Maybe we can talk Carole Brown into coming and being a DJ at that step is set. Talk to you later. Thank you. God bless you. Have a good day. Bye.